Hi, this is Vincent from starthomerecording.com. Today's topic is compression, so we'll see what is compression and why you need some compression on your tracks, and how all the knobs work. Let's use this vocal track as an example. Here you have a verse and here you have a chorus. So you can see that the volume of a singing varies widely. The verse is much quieter than the chorus, okay? Especially this section. These words here are very loud, and this phrase here is very quiet, okay? By itself, it's not a problem. The track sounds great, okay? But in the mix, you can see that especially this phrase here gets lost.
Suddenly my tongue is tied to you. Wanna know everything my heart already knows. Trust me, how would I trust me? Love mine, head over heels. Lovely, you're so lovely. How can a guy like me ever just be friends with a girl like you?
Okay, you see, there is a big difference between this phrase and this phrase is lost. Okay, it's completely lost in the mix. So we have to turn this phrase up. So what a compressor does is basically the compressor turns down the peaks. Okay, it turns down the loudest parts of the track so that they are closer to the quietest parts, okay? Then we can bring the volume of the whole track up so that the loudest parts sound unchanged and the quietest parts sound louder. So actually, a compressor makes the louder parts quieter and the quieter parts louder. It makes the volume of the track more consistent, more even. So let's open up Compressor on this track. Here, box, insert plugin, sorry. Here is the stock compressor, okay? Most compressors have 5 parameters. You have the threshold, you have a ratio, makeup gain, attack, release. The threshold is the volume at which the compressor starts reducing the volume of the track. So when the signal goes over the threshold, it is reduced, okay? The ratio is the strength of the compression. A ratio of, for example, 3 to 1 means that if the signal goes 3 dB over the threshold, it is reduced to 1 over the threshold. Proportionally, if the signal is 6 over the threshold, it is reduced to 2, and so on. I highly recommend that you stick to low ratios like 2, 3, or 4. If you go higher, the compression might be audible, and that's not what you want. So play safe and keep the ratio low. The gain here, or makeup gain, is simply the volume we are going to add to the whole track to compensate for the reduction of volume caused by the compressor. Attack is how fast the compressor will react when it detects a peak to be reduced. And release is how fast it stops compressing when the signal goes below the threshold. Okay? So basically the threshold is when to compress, the ratio is how hard, and the makeup gain is how much volume will you add to the track. Attack is how fast the compressor kicks in, and release is how fast the compressor stops compressing. So for now, we are going to set the release to 100, okay? If you have an auto plugin, an auto button on your plugin, use it. Most of the time it sounds really great, so I'm lazy. And set the attack to something like 20 milliseconds. we'll talk about attack and release later. So for now, 20 milliseconds for an attack is a good setting, and 100 or automatic for the release, okay? Let's set a ratio of, let's say 3, okay? 3 to 1 to start with, okay? I want to compress the chorus. I want to compress the chorus so that the verse stands out a little more, especially this phrase here, the do you here that we can't barely hear. Okay, so I want to compress the chorus, so let's loop the chorus here, up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press play and dial down the threshold until you can see gain reduction here. Okay, let's do it.
Head over heels, lovely, you're so lovely. How can a guy like me ever just be friends with a girl like you? 'Cause head over heels, lovely, you're so lovely. How can a guy like me ever just be friends with a girl like you? 'Cause head over heels, lovely, you're so lovely. How can a guy like me ever just be friends with a girl like you?
So you see, I've reduced the volume of the loudest peaks here by 6 dB and a half, okay? I highly recommend that you don't compress too much, okay? 6 dB is enough. 6 is enough. Try to keep the compression around 3 to 6 dB, not more. Again, we just want to make the volume of the track more consistent, okay? So the compression should not be audible, so be subtle. 3 to 6 dB is enough. On average, I've reduced the peaks by, let's say, 4 dB, okay? So let's add 4 or 5 dB of makeup gain, okay? To compensate for the loss of volume, okay? So now, let's listen again to the verse and the chorus, okay? And you will see that basically the chorus stays the same, but the verse is going to be pumped up by 4 dB. Let's listen. Without the compressor first, then with the compressor.
Sweetness, suddenly my tongue is tied. You wanna know everything my heart already knows. Trust me. How would I trust me? Love mine. Head over heels, lovely. You're so lovely. How can a guy like me ever just be friends with a girl like you? Sweetness, and suddenly my tongue is tied. You wanna know everything my heart already knows. Trust me. How would I trust me? Sweetness, and suddenly my tongue is tied. You wanna know everything my heart already knows. Trust me. Everything my heart already knows. Trust me. How would I trust me?
Did you see how clearer this section is, okay? Because it has been turned up by 4 dB and the rest is unchanged, okay? So that's the basic use of a compressor, to even out the volume of the track and make it more consistent so that every word, every syllable is heard clearly. So let's recap. A compressor brings louder parts down and it brings quieter parts up. Okay? The compressor starts reducing the volume of the track when the signal goes over the threshold. Okay? So the threshold determines when the compressor kicks in. The ratio determines the strength of the compression. Okay? How hard you want to compress. The makeup gain compensates for the loss. This plugin is great because you have an auto makeup gain. Okay? So again, I'm being lazy here. Beam automatic. And to keep the compression subtle, again, use low ratios like 2, 3, maybe 4 if you want, and use a slow attack. Okay, if you use a slow attack setting like 10, 20 or more milliseconds, the compression will be much less obvious. Okay, and that's the point. That's the point. You have to even out the performance, even out the volume of the track, but you must not hear the compressor. Must not hear the compressor. I'm tired today. And also try to knock no more than 6 dB off the track. Watch the gain reduction meter here, okay? And set the threshold accordingly. If you set the threshold too low, you will compress all the time. So if you set a threshold too low and a ratio too high, obviously you are going to compress too much. So keep to low ratio. The lyrics are the most important parts of the song, so compressor on vocals is really a must. You can also use a compressor on bass guitar to bring the roundness and the sustain of the bass up a little. Okay, so compressor on bass guitar sounds really great. And a compressor on drums is also very useful to give body and punch to the track, because it will make the kick, the snare and the tom hits much more consistent, and you will bring up the tone and the sustain of the drums and cymbals. Okay, so compressor on vocals, drums, bass is really a must. So now let's take drums as an example. Okay, so let's close the vocal tracks and take my drum group. So this is a drums group. I have a kick, sub kick, snare top, snare bottom. Okay, I have many drum tracks. They all go here. Okay, we're going to add a compressor on the group tracks. The group, an interesting spot. Let's take the drums in the introduction of the song. Yeah. Okay. Let's mute the rest. Let's mute the bass, mute the guitars, mute synth, percussions. Now you have only the drums. Okay, so let's listen to the drums. Let's put a compressor on it. Drums, dynamics, compressor. Okay, let's pull the threshold all the way down. Okay, we're going to see how the attack knob works. So automatic. Let's start with a ratio of 3:1. Okay, let's pull the threshold way down. Okay, so I'm going to set the fastest attack setting. Sorry, I'm going to press play and pull the threshold way down, and you will hear the effect of the compressor very clearly. So you can see how a very fast attack and too much compression really kills the drum's sound, okay? It really smashes all the kicks and all the snares, okay? So using a too fast attack really make the drum sound flat and boring, okay? So what we're going to do to give some life and some punch back to the drums is open up the attack knob. Let's listen. Did you see how dialing a slower attack suddenly open up the drums? You have more crack, more smack, more punch, okay? So that's why you should always try to use a slower attack setting, okay? If you use very fast attack setting, you are killing all the attack of the instrument. And for drums, this is not what you want, okay? Drums are very loud and have a lot of punch, a lot of attack. So if you compress them with a very fast attack, basically you are killing them, okay? So 20 is a good place to start, okay? But here, obviously, the ratio is very, very low, okay? So you don't want to compress drums that much. Let's listen again with and without compression. Okay, you see, so what have we done here? Simply, we have compressed the kick and snares by 6 dB, okay? But we left the attack of the drums alone, okay? And with the makeup gain, we added volume to the track. So what we did simply is we brought up the tone of the snare, of the kick, and of the cymbals, okay? So the drums look, or the drums sound punchier, okay, and more present, okay? That's the point of a compressor on drums, to make them punchier and more present. So let's recap once again. Threshold determines when your compressor kicks in, okay? Ratio determines how hard the compressor hits the sound. Makeup gain is the volume you're adding to the track, okay? So I have an auto makeup gain, I use it. Attack means how fast the compressor reacts, okay? So use slower attacks. I think, this is my opinion, but when the attack is under 10 milliseconds is fast, okay? I consider settings of less than 10 milliseconds as fast attacks. Most of the time I use 10 to 20, maybe 30 milliseconds. And release is how fast the compressor releases, okay? So again, set something like 100. 100 is fine. Or if you have an auto release, use it. I love this plugin because there is an auto makeup and an auto release. So basically it's a 3-knob compressor. When, how hard, how fast. Very easy, okay? Hope that helps. See you next week.